Hey guys, Henning and Morten here from FlippedNormals. In this episode, we're going to be showing you one of the chapters for our newly released character retopology tutorials. We are showing you in this series how to take a character from start to finish when it comes to basically doing the full retopology, including UVs. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Okay, so now in order to get started with the retopology again, we simply just select the mesh we had before. Make sure it's set to make live again, the original reference here. Let's select the mesh, and then we just hit the quadro tool.
And now it's time to party.
Now it's time to party. This is where we just connect stuff up. This is,
I guess this is the more exciting part of it.
Yeah.
Like laying down the foundation loops isn't necessarily super exciting because it doesn't look like a lot of stuff is happening.
No.
But until, like now when you start connecting them up, you actually start to get full usable topology.
Yeah.
Assuming you're making good topology, that is.
We also just enabling here like display properties. Under display properties, just polygons, just so we can see how many polys we have selected in each loop.
Yeah.
Because that's quite handy. Like we said, we aren't strictly speaking counting, but it's still useful just to have a general idea of what's going on here. I tried to make them nice and even. The more evenly spaced these are in the beginning, the easier everything is going to be later on. Luckily, the Maya has a super nice smoothing tool where you can just hold on. You can just enable soft select with the B key, and you can smooth everything out with the tool, and that's really convenient.
Yeah, I think the smooth tool in the quadro. Smooth tool within the quadro tool is actually really nice because it's already conformed to the surface. So you can lay down loops that kind of look ugly and then have it nice and evenly spaced out at the end.
We're going to be doing that later on as well because there is no way you can keep it super clean. I used to retopologize a lot in Modo, and in Modo they didn't have the smooth tool, so you just had to be super clean about it.
Yeah,
and it's good to get into the habits of being super clean, but you also don't care.
I mean, the thing is, you can't compete with a computer.
No, no.
It can make things to perfection.
Yeah, so my approach today is be a bit messier and then just go crazy with smoothing afterwards. But that still means don't be messy, just be messier.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you can speed up your process quite a lot if you don't lay down perfect loops all the time.
Yeah, because retopology is one of these things you can spend months on just perfecting everything.
Yeah.
But topology is one of these things that you don't really care so much about the final topology at the very end. You care far more about the final result. Sure, there are a lot of nerds out there who just really likes looking at good topology because it makes them feel good. And sure, there is something to that as well. But topology is very much a technical thing. It's very much a utility. It's there for a purpose. While you really should be spending more of your time on the artistic side of it, like the texturing side, the sculpting, really stuff which can make a huge difference.
And there's definitely something to be said for having super nice, all quaded topology, but also don't let it go to your head.
No.
It's quaded topology isn't everything. Quaded nice topology isn't everything all the time. There's like we've said in many videos before, there's definitely a time and place for triangles.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally just said that in the last chapter, so it's like...
So we were trying to avoid triangles.
Yes.
But if there is a spot where you can just input a triangle, like we're talking about our elephant graveyards here, where we just wanna make sure that our topology is nice and simple, and oftentimes by inserting a triangle you can avoid having a whole new loop into it. You want to avoid n-gons, because n-gons are super nasty when it comes to ZBrush. ZBrush literally won't accept n-gons, so you got to kill those guys.
Yeah, that's the dangerous part, because your n-gons can technically be fine if you have a completely flat surface and you're rendering, but as soon as you import it into something like ZBrush, ZBrush will actually create triangles automatically, so your point order is going to be screwed up.
Yeah, that's really nasty.
Yeah, so technically it's not the same mesh anymore.
No. Oh, then you are really in trouble. If your point order changes in the middle of, because you have an n-gon in it, and suddenly like none of your face mesh is going to work, or nothing is going to be working, that will be your fault and your problem. So you really got to make sure that that's working fine. But triangles, whatever works.
Be smart about it.
Be smart about it. The shoulder area is an interesting one as well, because there is so much deformation happening in the shoulder area, and I think the topology we're doing here is fairly good for deformation in the shoulder area. We just have a nice loop going around it, and it kind of conforms to the deltoid a little bit.
Yeah, and it's interesting with the delts there when it comes to topology, because I've seen many examples of it. Ones that use more defined shoulder girdle like we have, one that's more square, and it's hard to say what is better, because it's so dependent on...
Who knows?
Exactly, like some of the stuff that I saw from ILM at one point in terms of their topology was a lot more square than something that we're doing here with the girdle, but that's also because they're just running muscle sims on it. So they need more consistent, just square polish just running across or down the model. But it really depends on what you're using it for.
Yeah, like if you look at some more old topology stuff, like maybe from like mid 10 years ago or so, then you would see everything is a lot more defined. They would actually define like the biceps and the lats and everything in topology. And that was because there was no muscle sim wasn't being used at all then. But today you want to stay more gridded, because if you have the muscles baked into topology, that means they're always flexed. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because now you can't really unflex them, and you want to look natural. So that's what we're talking about. Like, there is kind of like a ratio between fully gridded, where like nothing is defined in topology, and where everything is defined in topology with muscles. You probably want to use a hybrid, where like for faces, you just have to bake in something like the nasolabial fold. There is no way to go about that. But in a perfect world where we had crazy technology, you will probably simulate as much as you can with that. But the face isn't really being simulated at this point. You do specific blend shapes for it. But I'm sure that's going to change as we get more powerful technology.
Yeah.
More and more is being simmed.
I love sim.
Sim is so good. I love sim because I'm not doing sim. I just give some simple models to the sim department, to CFX, and they make it look awesome.
I say that I love sim, but I actually don't always. I was doing shot sculpting for Pacific Rim, and the sims that we were getting from the effects department there, it had to be done quick.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff had to be fixed. Oh, look at that. Look at how you can just smooth that out. That was so perfect.
Yeah.
But the sims that you get, they're never going to be perfect. So there's always going to be fixing that you need to do on the sims.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly what we just did there with smoothing off the shoulder area. You can spend all the time doing this by hand, but technology. Let's do the computer. Let's make the computer do the work for us. So if you smooth while hovering over just the general model, then you're smoothing off the internal bits. If you smooth while hovering over the border, you're smoothing down the border. Really nice stuff. We cover this in our free videos as well, and we're of course linking to this in a document, which follows along as well. Because there's no reason to really include the actual video files when they're literally available for free online. So let's not kill your bandwidth here.
No.
So again, you can see here connecting stuff up because everything was already connected nicely when we added loops here.
The nice thing is about just working with cylinders is you can just go in and just add another loop.
Yeah.
This is one of the hard things, actually. I think this is one of the things that really speaks against doing C-remesh topology. Being able to do something here where you just go in and you just add a loop.
Yeah.
It's pretty tricky because you have to make it work with everything that's already been created. Whereas here, we only have to make it work with, the number of spans that are above and below there.
Exactly. There aren't any spirals or anything nasty here. If you were to do the same thing here for even a low-res C-remesh model, you would realize that like the finger is connected to the inside of the ear or something like that. Some crazy shit, which is really problematic. So I highly recommend not using C-remesh, unless there's like a 911 thing and you're in trouble and you want to just let rigging deal with all the problems. But you really want to just do this properly.
Yeah.
And if somebody tells you not, then don't trust them. If you have a teacher or something who tells you that topology is dead and only C-remeshing exists now, you don't have to worry about it. They're wrong.
Then they don't know what they're talking about. No. Unfortunately.
Then they haven't really been doing this.
But that's, I think, I'm almost afraid that this is one of the things we're the most known for, but it's also good, I think. The fact that we talk this much about topology, because I think it is so important, and I think a lot of people don't realize that topology is still manual.
Yeah.
The main topology is still manual. It's not automatic yet.
No.
I wish it was automatic.
That would be awesome.
But unfortunately, it just isn't.
This would be a really boring tutorial if it was all automatic. Yeah, you click this button. That would be $40, please.
That'd be a great tutorial.
Yeah, it would be good for us. We're just clicking buttons for like 4 hours.
We could totally do that.
Yeah, that would have been a lot less work, to be fair. Here you can see as well, it's a bit tricky to actually like get the polys to insert, and that's just because the tool in Maya. And don't worry about being fast when you're doing this. The same with sculpture as well. Don't worry about sculpting fast or retopoing fast or UV mapping fast or anything we're doing in all these years here. Worry about doing it well, because speed will always come. But
it's just practice.
Yeah, exactly. But if you aren't, you can be slow and good, and you can be taught to be fast. But if you're fast and shitty, it's really hard to teach somebody fast and shitty to be fast and good.
Yeah.
Because then you're just rushing the foundation.
Man, I love this smoothing tool. It's so good.
You see this tool here? This is really annoying. This is when you're supposed to just drag out the loops here, but it just accidentally drags out a strip. And that's just the way life is. We're going to be doing this a lot more in this series. It's really cool what we just did here as well, just dragging out a whole strip instead of just dragging out a single loop, which I do a lot as well when I'm retopologizing, just dragging down single polys, because then you control them. But just having a whole loop is also really handy. So like before as well, you can see performance is starting to go a bit slow. And this is true almost regardless of what system you're on. This is not because your computer is slow. This is because the tool just really hasn't been optimized for these things.
Yeah, unfortunately.
This is trying to do this on giant kaiju's for production. That's very problematic. Whenever I've been doing something for production with retopology, I've usually been using Modo. Some years ago, I worked on Alien Covenant and did a retopology for the xenomorph there, and that was all done using Modo. Just because performance was just a bit terrible in Maya. So Modo was a bit slower to work with, just because it didn't have, like we were talking about before, it didn't have the smoothing tool. But even so, it was still faster to do it by hand in Modo, bring it into Maya, and then smooth it there, instead of doing it in Maya. You can also use additional tools for this as well, like Topogon, 3D Coat, Modo. Max probably has some pretty decent tools as well.
Yeah.
This here is universal. Whatever tool you're using, the principles here are exactly the same.
One of the things I really like about doing it in Maya is that you have a full-fledged 3D software to deal with. So if you have a dedicated topology solution or retopology solution, you might not be able to go in and edit freely. You might only be able to sort of like do stuff on top of the model. But here you can go in and like move the vertices however you want to, disconnect it from stuff, and you have all the other Maya tools still available to you.
Yeah, I think that's really important, particularly when if you're doing something like what we're going to do later on, like extruding the eyes in, extruding the mouth. We just do a couple of regular extrusions.
Yeah,
that's something you normally would just have to export your model, particularly out of Topogon. I used Topogon before. Export it out of Topogon, import it into Maya, do an extrude, take it back into Topogon.
Yeah.
So, like Morten is saying here, I think the benefit of having everything under one roof outweighs the potential benefit of doing it in a specialized tools like Topogon. Unless it's all you do. It's kind of like with UVs as well. If you are a UV mapping artist, God forbid, God rest your soul, then you might want to have a specialized tool like UV layout. But you most of the time are just fine with Maya.
Yeah.
Because Maya has actually got really good when it comes to UV mapping and retopology over the last few years now, at least compared to where it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, after they acquired, was it the Nightshade? Yeah, the Nightshade UV tools. The Nightshade tools have been awesome for many, many years.
Yeah.
And they just took those and implemented them. I think they actually made them a little worse because they had to, auto-deskify them.
Yeah, of course they had to.
But it's still far superior to anything that was in Maya before.
Yeah. Yeah, the UV tools got good around like 3-4 years ago. And today in version 2018, which we're using here, they're quite fantastic.
Yeah.
They're not as fast for pure unfolding and some of those tasks as certain other tools, but who cares? Like, for these kind of characters here, maybe you do unfold like 20 times or so, and then you just click it and you wait like 2 more seconds. You're talking like maybe a few minutes compared to the other ones. But
it's not gonna break the bank.
No, it's not. And yeah, like Morten was saying, the benefit of having everything in one tool far outweighs having specialized tools, unless you do it all the time.
And also, if you were doing something like this in a production, you probably wouldn't even do bespoke topology because this is so similar to a human that you would probably just wrap whatever base mesh that the studio is using. That's the most likely scenario. You might, maybe not even for the feet here, so you would probably, for something like this in a production, you'd probably just wrap a fully functional topology man, lady, or whatever they have in the studio.
Yeah, that's how this is normally done in production, because doing this kind of stuff is, when we did the xenomorph for Alien, we had to, because the head is obviously completely different, but also the body as well is also quite different. We had a lot of crazy stuff happening there. But if you're doing something like this, which is way more humanoid, there is no tail, there is no anything. This is a human just with different proportions. You might as well just wrap it. And by wrap it, we mean actually using a tool called wrap. We're not talking about the concept of wrapping something. Yeah,
there's a tool called Wrap3, so WRAP3.
Yeah.
They have another tool called WrapX has scripting support. So using those tools really speeds up your process. That's the standard for doing digidoubles pretty much nowadays, I think.
Yeah, if you have a digidouble, the way it's going to work now, it's not going to work. You get some shitty images from the internet, and then you align them up in camera, and now you spend 4 weeks trying to align it. What you're doing is you get a scan of the actor on set, which is done properly, proper photogrammetry session.
Yeah.
You bring in the scan, and you normally have all their facial expressions and everything. Now you have like 100 cameras you can look through in Maya, and you really just align it as much as you can. You use Wrap3 or whatever tool you might have to just automatically wrap it. You just select some points on your base mesh, and you just select some points on the scan, and you just click boom.
Yeah.
And it does it basically perfectly.
It's crazy. It's crazy, the tool. It can even like, even if you're holding on to objects and stuff, like if you're wrapping a hand that's holding on to a ball, it can still wrap the hand.
And you can work on textures now as well, so you don't actually have to have points for it. So you can, as long as you can apply the texture to the scan, now you can just click boom, and it's just gonna go boom. It's fantastic. So retopology, it's not that it's a dying art per se. It's just that the big productionalists at least are getting more efficient.
Yeah,
it makes no sense to do this for every single character when you can just conform it to something else.
Yeah, and once you have an artist that knows how to use wrap, which takes around half a day maybe to get familiar with, you can just, well, poor artist, but then you can just have them wrap all day long.
Yeah, this is why I'm advocating for people to either go into more technical fields when it comes to 3D, like proper programming, Houdini, or go into more artistic side of it.
Yeah.
Because something like retopology, which used to be something you can just have as your main skill, that skill is going away. And today it's still happening, for sure. But a lot of this is outsourced today to India or to China. The major studios most likely have a studio in either India or China. And it's being done there. Because retopology isn't... If you're more beginner and watching this and we're saying it's not hard, you're going to be like, what are you talking about? It's super hard. Once you've been doing this for some time.
Yeah.
If you've been doing retopology for some years and been doing 3D for some years, it's not very hard compared to sculpting or scripting. So we highly recommend that you learn something else than just retopology.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an unfortunate reality.
Yeah.
And the people in India are gods at retopology. Like
that's what they do.
That's what they do. They are. I'm so impressed every time we've actually used an India department and sent work down there, because first of all, it comes back way quicker than what we'd be able to do, and it's as good, if not better.
Yeah.
You know, because that's, if they have someone dedicated to topology, there's no way I'm going to be able to compete with that.
No. So learn proper sculpture. But that said, like, this is, of course, is a super valuable skill to have. And if you're a 3D character artist, you need to learn retopology. You shouldn't be like, I don't want to learn it because it's going to be outsourced. It's still one of the fundamental skills you need to learn. And particularly for personal projects, I mean, let's face it, you're not going to outsource your personal projects. But also for personal projects, you might not really care about topology as much.
Yeah.
But this here is particularly more valuable the smaller the studio is as well, because no 30-person company is going to have an India department. No. That's like if you're a few hundred people. Yeah, so this video here is obviously sped up, so really, really don't panic about the speed here. Whenever we're working, it's just kind of like you put on some podcasts and you're just doing this slowly.
Yeah.
Can't stress that enough. Slowly, methodical, and just relax while doing it. Because it looks a bit twitchy here, but slow and proper.
It's interesting with the leg. The leg and the arm is just sausages.
Yeah.
You know, it's really not... That's not where the challenge is
No.
in doing retopology. Most of the time.
Yeah, I find the hardest part of doing retopology would be something like hands or the face. Maybe the shoulders as well. It can be quite tricky depending on the character. And of course, if you have more complex character, which have wings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we were gonna, when we were concepting this up, we were talking about adding wings or adding like some kind of like tissues between the arms, kind of like gliding wings.
But then we didn't.
So glad we didn't.
Yeah.
Because the moment you have wings or some really thin membranes, all hell breaks loose there. Because it's so much harder to do.
I have okay, so this film isn't out yet, so I can't talk about it too much. But there's a film that I've worked on that isn't out yet that has a dragon in it, and I sea remeshed it.
What?
Yeah, I sea remeshed the wings. Because the wings...
Confession time.
Confession time. You know, I don't work in VFX anymore. Haha. Screw you, suckers. No.
The last thing you did
was just a sea remesh out of spite.
Yeah.
Because for something like the wings, it was just the membrane. Then the membrane wasn't connected by the mesh to the bone, which meant that the bones were sea remeshed and the membranes were sea remeshed. Which was awesome, because there's like a skeleton dragon, so you could just sea remesh the bones, sea remesh the wings, and then I could just sculpt immediately.
How does it feel to be literally sated, Martin?
Yeah, I mean, it's, oh man, you know,
biggest hypocrite ever.
But I hate myself so much.
You're like, oh no, this is so hard. But yeah, like sea remeshing is fantastic if you have stuff which doesn't really deform a lot.
Yeah.
Obviously here the wings themselves will deform, which might not be a problem when it comes to something like bones. You're probably not going to squash and stretch the bone.
Probably not, no.
Probably not. And if you have like 200 bones, just click the button.
You can just click the button, yeah.
But if you have something like a full creature like this, I would do it by hand. And then fight anyone who says otherwise. Unless it's Morton, because then there's a good reason for it.
Oh, shit.
But it's just a tool like everything else, of course. Like, sea remeshing isn't bad. It's just a tool like all other tools. There's a time and place for it. I really love the smoothing feature.
Yeah, me too.
It's so handy.
It just saves so much time.
I probably wouldn't be using Maya as my main retopology tool if they didn't have that.
I have a friend of mine who wrote his own Retopologizer, and it's something I've been trying to get him to release for a while, because it's actually So superior.
Hint, hint, Louise.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, who does that? Who writes their own tools? Yeah. But see, if you do, that's what we were talking about before, technical or artistic.
Yeah.
Now, this guy can do everything because he's a goddamn genius. Yeah. But if you can make your own retopology tool, you become very valuable for production. If you can make your own tools, you have such a leverage.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. Like, he's a modeler who can also program.
Yeah.
That's a very special mix that's very good to have in a production.
It really is. Then because one artist is worth one artist. I can do, almost regardless of how good you are, you can basically do the job of one artist. If you're doing a character, well, I can only do one character because I'm one person. But if you can do programming or scripting or something like that, then you're not worth one anymore. Now suddenly 10 people can speed up the work significantly.
Yeah.
Imagine if you were the person who made Rap 3, and now suddenly all retopology artists in the world can just speed up the work by like legit 1,000 to 2,000%.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even funny how much more valuable you are. No, you're not worth one anymore. You're worth like 200.
Yeah.
I remember we'd have that though when we worked on a movie where the production people would always just give me more tasks, so like 3-4 things at one go, and be like, "You do realize I am one person? Have you counted me recently?" Because they would throw at me character sculpting, character texturing, 2 different characters, and retopology for 3rd character at the same time. I was like, I can't really do that.
Yeah.
That's too much. If something else isn't working, just delete it. If you got to redirect some flow here, or if a polygon is misbehaving, just remove it.
Misbehaving polygon.
Such a naughty little polygon.
Man, my brain instantly went to like erotic fanfic of someone doing something with topology.
Oh no.
Should we have like a PG warning or something? Like PG-13 at the start of the video? We should have that for a specific chapter.
Yeah.
So in this chapter, we will talk about these things.
Oh guys, UV mapping's tutorial of that. It's gonna go crazy. Yeah, and the more you do this as well, the more it's going to make sense. The first time you're doing your character, the very first character you'll be doing, you're going to be like, I guess this makes sense, but your loops are going to go everywhere. You're probably going to have quite dirty topology, because I did that.
There you go. Again with the dirty topology heading.
Well, I think this is your mind. You might have mathematically invalid topology.
Yeah, there you go. Now I've got nothing.
Yeah. Invalid? No, I have nothing. But yeah, like if you do a model here and loops are going a bit all over the place, you have spirals and everything, don't worry too much about it. Just do another character. I found it to be easier to restart the character, at least topology, than it is to try to fix something. Because
yeah, if it's really broken and you can't get it to work, then scrap it.
Yeah.
But this is exactly the same issue you run into when you're Z-remeshing. If you're Z-remeshing an entire character, where you can run into the issue that you think parts of your topology is working because the Z-remesher makes it look like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
But
you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's like, oh, just one click and I'm basically done. And then you realize, I still have 2 weeks of work left. Yeah. So, it can be tricky like that. So sometimes you just have to scrap all of it.
Yeah. The way I like to think about it, this is something we might have talked about in other videos before, is that if you're doing this by hand, you know that maybe this character here, if I were to do this for production, this would probably take me maybe a few weeks in total. Obviously, I would refine the topology more than it's done with this. Let's say it takes me 3 weeks to do this full character. That's around what the xenomorph took me to do. Then that was including UVs as well. So yeah, around 3 weeks is realistic for that. That takes me 3 weeks, but after 3 weeks, I know it's done.
Yeah.
If you're doing zero meshing, then it takes you like 2 seconds to click the button, and then you have a mystery variable of X.
Yeah.
So how long is it going to take you? Well, let's first send to rigging and see if they have any complaints here, and then we see if there are some crazy spirals, and And you just don't know. Maybe in total it takes you like one whole week to figure out the issues. Then you're spending another week trying to fix them.
Yeah.
And in total, maybe it takes you over 4 weeks to do the entire thing.
Yeah.
So it's not just, or let's say it takes you the exact same amount of time. You might as well just do it the correct way from the beginning, where you can actually give people a proper estimate. I think that's really important. Because then they can rely on you.
I can't remember if we mentioned this, but when you're using the smooth brush, like you said, we also moved around the topology before, you can see we have soft select enabled. And soft select enables you to select a larger area.
So smart.
So without soft select, you're only going to be able to select one vert.
Yeah.
So with soft select enabled, that's where the tool gets super powerful.
And if this here doesn't connect up, just add another loop. Add a loop or remove a loop. And this is what we mean by don't be mathematically perfect with this. Just connect it up, and then we can start to refine it afterwards.
That's the nice thing about, not having the hands finished. Just having loops for the hands. Now we know, okay, so we can connect these up. I just need to add this amount of loops, and then it works.